Welcome to the online class of gender studies. Today's topic is about gender-based violence. Gender-based violence is a serious issue in our society. It is the most serious form of discrimination. Women from the majority of those living in poverty denied access to health, education, and income opportunities. They are exposed to various forms of violence and exploitation. Gender-based violence can be defined as any act of gender-based violence that result in or is likely to result in physical, sexual or psychological harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether in public or in private life. Pakistan ranks as the sixth most dangerous country in the world with case of sexual crime and domestic violence. Violence against women includes domestic violence by the family members or intimate partner, sexual violence including rape, sexual abuse, and forced pregnancies. Last one is traditional harmful practices include honor killing, right? Next slide is about National Policy for Development. In 2000, National Commission on the Status of Women NCSW was created upon the advice of Inquiry Commission for Women in the same year. In the same year 2000, the National Policy for Development and Empowerment of Women's Provision on Violence Against Women called for zero tolerance for regarding violence against women, declaring honor killing murders, introducing positive legislation on domestic violence and reforms, reviewing policies on women's shelter, establishing family protection programs to ensure women have access to legal, medical, and psychological counseling, undertaking police reforms to increase and train women in the police, sensitizing the police force on issues of regarding based violence, gender-based violence, a policy on gender-based violence, abolishing discriminatory laws. Next slide is about health consequences of gender-based violence. First one is physical health outcomes include injury, unwanted pregnancy, gynecological problems, pelvic inflammatory disease, chronic pain, headache, asthma, permanent disabilities, and irritable bowel syndrome. These are all physical health outcomes of gender-based violence. Next one is mental health outcomes. The mental health outcomes are depression. Mental health outcomes of gender-based violence include depression, fear, anxiety, low self-esteem, eating disorder. Eating disorders include binge eating, anorexia nervosa, and bulimia nervosa. And the second one is obsessive compulsive disorder, and the last one is post-traumatic stress disorder. Gender-based violence against women and girls is a global pandemic that affects 1 in 3 women in their lifetime. 35% of women worldwide have experienced either physical or sexual violence. Globally, 7% of women have been sexually assaulted by someone other than a partner, and 38% of murders of women are committed by intimate partners. Next slide is about theories of gender-based violence. There are 3 main theories of gender-based violence. First one is learned behavior theory, second one is learned helplessness theory, and the last one is family relationship conflict theory. First we will discuss discuss learned behavior theory. According to researcher, violence is learned. Man battered because they had learned violence in their families as children. They learn through observation, through experience, through reinforcement. They learn through culture, through a family, and through a community such as school or workplace. Next theory is about learned helplessness theory. Learned helplessness theory is presented by American psychologist Lenore Walker. According to her, there are many social, economic, and cultural reasons a woman might choose to stay in an abusive relationship. Women often have a very rational reasons for staying. They may fear retaliation against themselves or their children, or they may not be able to financially support themselves or their children. Next theory is about family relationship conflict theory. According to this theory, both the man and the woman contribute to violence in an intimate relationship. This theory assumes that either the relationship is characterized by mutual violence or in many cases wife provokes her husband, promoting a violent response from her husband. There are different forms of gender-based violence. The main forms of gender-based violence include domestic violence and honor killing. First, we will discuss. The next slide is about domestic violence. Domestic violence is any behavior the purpose of which is to gain power and to control over a spouse or partner or any intimate family members. Uh, Domestic violence in Pakistan has targeted not only women but also men and children. It has long-lasting psychological effects such as depression and low self-esteem, which further compromise the victim's ability to acquire a basic standard of well-being. There are many factors involved in domestic violence. First one is patriarchal culture, second one is religious factor, third and the second last is lack of awareness, and the last one is institutional barrier. First, we will discuss patriarchal culture. Patriarchal nature of the Pakistani society, which fosters a safe space for such ideas to grow. For example, it is considered the right of the husband to beat his wife. It is the right of the husband to beat his wife, and gender roles of women is just cooking, bearing, and raising children result in violent outcomes in case the woman deviates from this prescribed task. Next factor is religious factor. The patriarchal culture is strengthened by the misguided support of some religious leaders who use Islam as a tool to keep women at a very low position. These leaders play an important role in validating the use of violence against women by presenting the religious text taken out of context to support their arguments. Third factor of domestic violence is lack of awareness. In many areas of Pakistan, women are unaware of the laws and right granted to them by the constitution. These lead to them being isolated from the system on the assumption that there is no other option than to suffer in their homes. Low education level result in being economically dependent on the male members as they do not have the required skills to. Next slide is about institutional barriers. lack of cooperation of police in registering FIRs for domestic violence, inadequate health care and shelter support for the victims, and time-consuming judicial procedures are some of the barriers that women face. These kind of barriers discourage women from seeking help. Next slide is about policies. As domestic violence is a grave concern in Pakistan, the government has made certain efforts to curb it. First policy is Domestic Violence Prevention and Protection Act 2012 declares that hearing date must be set within 7 days of receiving the complaint and the case must be dealt with in 19 days. Second act is the Punjab Protection of Women Against Violence Act. The Punjab Protection of Women Against Violence Act include protection against physical and mental domestic violence, harassment, economic abuse and cyber crimes. It also entails the establishment of violence against women centers and district women protection committees aimed at providing judicial and healthcare assistance. Last one is shelter homes. Shelter homes established by the government provide protection to victims and safe space for dispute resolution. Another form of gender-based violence is honor killing. Honor crimes are acts of violence, usually murder, committed by the male family members against female family members who are held to have brought dishonor upon the family. The term honor crime is a wide term which include different manifestation of violence such as honor killing, assault, confinement or imprisonment or and interference with choice in marriage. Next slide is about some reasons behind honor killing. There are so many reasons behind honor killing. Some of them are disobeying the dress code given by the community. Second one is marrying the person outside the caste or religion. Third one is refusing arranged marriage. And second one is rape. And last one is engaging in lesbian or guy relationships. Some cases of honor killing. First case is Hina Shahnawaz. Hina Shahnawaz was a young woman of 27 she was from Kohat, MPhil degree holder. She was killed by her cousin on 6th Feb 2017. Next case is about Kandil Baloch. Kandil Baloch, she was social media star and she was killed by her brother on the name of honor in I think 2016. Islamic point of view. According to Islamic point of view, who kills a believer intentionally, their reward will be held to abide therein forever, and the wrath and the curse of the Allah are upon them, and dreadful penalty is prepared for them. Holy Quran 4 verse number 93. So, to honor is to love. Honor is to love, to protect, and to defend. There is no honor in murder. Thank you.